My name is Emily. I'm 32 years old, born and raised in a small coastal town near Seattle, the kind of place where the sky stays gray almost all year and the salty sea breeze seeps into every corner of every street. I grew up in my grandma's cramped kitchen, where she taught me to season food with my heart, not measuring spoons. I can still smell the apple pie baking on Christmas morning, hear the crackle of salmon searing on a cast iron skillet at dawn. Those weren't just memories, they were in my blood. But Mark, my husband, never understood that. He's 38, a marketing director for a home appliance company, the kind of man who wears gray suits and dark ties even when he's just grabbing coffee. When we first got married, Mark used to love my grilled salmon, used to tell me, "You cook better than any restaurant." But once he got promoted, everything changed. He started going to fancy parties, schmoozing with colleagues he was desperate to impress. I still remember the night he came home, slammed a restaurant menu on the table, his face red from booze. You know what my colleagues said? They called my wife just a housewife, said she had zero class. That sentence felt like a blade slicing through the last threads of trust between us. After that, Mark started checking my phone constantly. He said it was to protect the family, but I knew better. He was scared. Scared that I might have a life he couldn't control. Scared that I might shine on my own. I secretly filmed cooking videos using an old phone I'd bought cheap from a secondhand electronics store, hidden deep in my kitchen towel drawer. Whenever Mark was out on business trips, sometimes a sunny afternoon, sometimes a long rainy night, I'd set up and make honey mustard Dungeness salmon, scallop pasta and garlic butter, or fresh avocado salad with lemon dressing. Then one day, my video on honey mustard Dungeness salmon unexpectedly went viral, over 2 million views in just 3 days. My hands were shaking, tears welling up as I read the comments. "Thank you for inspiring me to cook," and "I can feel the love through your food." Suddenly, I dared to dream bigger. Top Chef, Chopped, maybe even World Chef Showdown, the global cooking competition I'd admired for years. But then Mark found out. He came home early that day, his face dark, and threw my laptop onto the table. "Wow, you think you're a star now? Did you know my boss shared your video to the whole office today? Asked me if my wife was quitting to be a YouTuber? Do you have any idea how humiliated I felt?" I froze, my throat bone dry. I just wanted to follow my passion. I didn't do anything wrong. Mark lunged forward, snatched the old phone from my hands, and smashed it on the floor. The screen shattered, tiny shards scattering like pieces of a dream reflected back at me. "Passion? You're my wife. You're only allowed to dream when I say you can." His voice hit me like a hammer to the skull. I crouched down, hands trembling as I picked up the broken phone. My eyes fixated on the cracks, a numb ache spreading through my chest. In that moment, I saw it clearly. Mark didn't just want to control my life. He was terrified of being overshadowed. He wanted me invisible, obedient, a decorative piece to his success, not a woman with her own dreams and light. Sarah, my best friend, once warned me, "You need to be careful with Mark. I know how much you love cooking, but don't let him crush you." Back then, I brushed her off, thought she was overreacting. Now, I realized she had been right all along. That night, I locked myself in the bedroom and opened my new laptop. I pulled up the application for World Chef Showdown. My fingers trembled so much, I mistyped my name 3 times. Outside, the rain tapped against the window in a steady rhythm, as if cheering on the rebellion brewing inside me. I stared at the submit button, my heart pounding. I thought of my grandma, of Sarah, of every stranger who had thanked me under those videos. And I thought of Mark, his red face, his furious glare. I hit submit, a final slash to the invisible chain Mark had wrapped around my life. In that instant, I felt a spark of the old Emily, the girl who once dreamed of standing on a top chef stage, gripping a knife and a skillet, come alive, burning bright in that dark room. But I knew Mark wouldn't let this slide. I didn't know what would come next. Would he try everything to stop me? Would I have the courage to keep going? I wasn't sure, but this time I was ready to fight. I woke up in the middle of the night, the rain still drumming steadily on the roof. The streetlight spilled through the window, casting tired, pale yellow streaks across the ceiling. I looked over. Mark was fast asleep, breathing heavily, snoring in that harsh, rasping way he always did. In the dark, I laid a hand on my chest, feeling my heart pound wildly. I had submitted my application. I had dared to cross that line. But what about Mark? The next morning, I got up early and made breakfast, eggs Benedict with hollandaise sauce and avocado salad. The smell of melted butter mixing with hot coffee gave me a fleeting sense of peace, but only for a moment before the dread rushed back in. I watched Mark walk out, his eyes flicking to the food tray before he sneered. "What's this? You trying to record another video?" I shook my head, forcing a weary smile. "Just wanted to make you happy." Mark snorted, his voice dripping with contempt. "Make me happy? Don't kid yourself. You just want people to praise you. I know exactly what you're after." I gripped my fork tighter, trying to stop my hand from trembling. I hid my old phone deep inside the rice bin, wrapped in layers of kitchen towels. Just thinking about Mark finding it made my heart seize up. I needed a plan. Never film when he was home, never leave traces on the dining table, never share any personal info on my new channel. I had to be meticulous. What I didn't know was that Mark's suspicions had only grown. He started checking my computer, combing through my browser history, scanning every email notification. 3 days later, an email from World Chef Showdown landed in my inbox, confirming that my application had been accepted. I nearly screamed with joy, but I slapped my hand over my mouth instantly. That's when I realized Mark was standing right behind me. "I knew it," he growled. I jolted so hard I knocked my chair over. I turned to see his bloodshot eyes twisted with hatred. "Please, let me explain." Mark lunged forward, ripped the laptop from my hands, and slammed it onto the table. He pulled up the email, eyes darting across every line. "You went behind my back? You applied for that stupid show without asking me? Who the hell do you think you are, Emily?" I backed into the corner of the kitchen, my spine pressing against the icy fridge. I had never seen him this violent before. I just wanted to cook. I wasn't going to leave you. I just wanted to prove I could." "Shut up," Mark roared. "You humiliated me in front of my colleagues. You turned me into a joke. You want the whole world to see that I married some useless, pathetic woman chasing childish fantasies?" My lips quivered. I realized then he wasn't just a controlling husband anymore. He was terrified. Terrified of losing power. Terrified of losing his obedient trophy wife he paraded around to boost his image. Mark turned back to the screen and started typing furiously. I lunged forward, trying to grab the laptop back, but he shoved me to the floor. I watched in horror as he typed out the subject line, "Request to withdraw Emily from World Chef Showdown, personal reasons." I felt like my heart was being ripped out and crushed right in front of me. Mark hit send. He turned to me with a blank, victorious stare. "It's done. You're not going anywhere. You belong here. You belong to me." I wanted to scream, to rip everything apart, but I just sat on the floor, hugging my head, my breath ragged. I didn't move from that corner for the rest of the night. Mark lounged in the living room, sipping whiskey, blasting the TV as if nothing had happened. Late into the night, he walked past me and let out a cold laugh. "Stop trying, Emily. You were born to stay behind others. Don't kid yourself about being some star chef. It's pathetic." Those words lodged inside me like a rusted nail, driving deeper with each echo. The next morning, Mark invited some friends and coworkers over for a small lunch party. I cooked all morning, my eyes swollen from crying. By noon, the house was full of people, the sound of clinking glasses and laughter filling every room. Mark stood up, holding his glass high. "You know," he said, his voice cheerful but edged with cruelty, "my dear Emily here recently had this silly dream about becoming a celebrity chef. She even tried to enter an international cooking competition. But I had to stop her. Women and their ridiculous dreams, right? They just embarrass the family." Laughter erupted around the room. I stood behind the counter, my hands gripping it so hard my knuckles turned white. Sarah, my only friend who still believed in me, caught my eyes, her gaze glassy and red. I pressed my lips together, swallowed my tears, and turned away so no one would see my face. I felt stripped bare in front of all those sneering eyes. Could I ever find the strength to stand up again, or would I drown forever under Mark's weight? I didn't know, but somewhere deep inside, something still flickered, a tiny ember waiting for its moment to ignite. After the party, I sat alone by the sink, wringing a wet rag until my fingers ached. The sound of glasses clinking and Mark's friends giggling still echoed from the living room. Every laugh felt like another knife, carving deeper into what little self-worth I had left. Sarah quietly slipped into the kitchen, her eyes filled with worry. She sat beside me, took my hand, her voice trembling. "Emily, you can't let him keep doing this. You have to stand up. You deserve so much more." I lowered my head, my shoulders shaking. I used to trust these hands, hands that could paint happiness on every plate. Now they just curled around that rag, shrunken, scared of life itself. "Sarah, I'm so tired. I believed in him. I thought if I just loved him enough, took good enough care of him, he'd understand." Sarah pulled me in and hugged me tight, whispering, "He doesn't deserve you. You need to find yourself again, Emily. You can't stay his shadow forever." I heard her words, but my heart felt shrouded in a thick fog. I couldn't even cry anymore. It felt like I'd run out of tears altogether. That night, after all the guests left, Mark came into the kitchen. He glanced at the pile of dirty dishes, then looked at me with cold disdain. "See? No one's on your side. Even your friend just pities you to be polite. You should be grateful I kept you from humiliating yourself on TV." I didn't answer. I could feel my blood boiling. Part of me wanted to scream, to slap him across the face. But then my grandma's voice echoed in my head. "Even if you fall, you can always rise again in the kitchen. Remember, sweetheart, that's where you're truly free." That night, I lay in bed. Mark had his back turned to me, his breathing heavy. I stared at the ceiling, the tiny cracks like roads I had never dared to travel. Sarah texted, "I'm here, whenever you need me." I pressed my hand to my chest, closed my eyes, and tried to imagine the smell of apple pie, the sound of spoons clinking, the memory of my grandma's smile. The next morning, Mark left early for a client meeting. I sat alone in the kitchen, eggs, kale, and honey still on the counter. I picked up my knife, my hands still trembling, but this time it felt different. I started cooking Dungeness salmon with honey mustard, the dish that had once made my video go viral. I cooked slowly, feeling every cut, every flip of the fish, as though I was stitching my soul back together. The scent of honey blending with roasted salmon filled the kitchen, pulling me back to that day my grandma first told me, "Good job, Emily. You're seasoning with your heart now." I sat at the table, taking small, deliberate bites, tears spilling down my cheeks. I realized then, Mark could control my emails, sabotage my competition, humiliate me in front of the world, but he could never steal the sweetness of this passion. That evening, Mark came home and saw the messy kitchen. He squinted. "You cooking this crap again? You just don't know when to stop, do you?" I didn't answer. For the first time, I looked him straight in the eyes without flinching. And what I saw wasn't strength. It was a trembling, pathetic man hiding behind a fake shell of power. He raised his hand to slap me, but I dodged, standing up fast. "You want to control me because you're afraid. You're afraid I'll be better. You're terrified I won't stand behind you anymore. You're scared people will see how truly weak you are." Mark froze, his face twisting, fists clenching. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in years, my voice rang out strong and clear. "I don't belong to you. I'm not some display piece. I am Emily, and I will not let you kill me inside ever again." Mark lunged, but I ran out of the kitchen, sprinted upstairs, and locked the door. I threw clothes into a bag, grabbed my recipe journal, my grandma's old paring knife, a few outfits, and my old phone. Sarah arrived within 10 minutes, her headlights shining into my window. I bolted outside and clung to her like a life raft. "Let's go, now," she whispered. I looked back at the house one last time, my heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. But deep inside, something had come alive. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. I had lost the competition, my reputation, and even the place I once called home. But I still had these hands. I still had a heart that knew how to season with love. And for the first time in years, I truly felt free. I moved into Sarah's tiny studio apartment near Pike Place Market. The entire place was barely 300 square feet, with low ceilings and creaky wooden floors that moaned with every step. But to me, it felt like heaven. That first night, I lay on Sarah's old sofa, hugging my recipe journal to my chest. Outside, the waves crashed against the rocky shore, seagulls calling into the night air, all blending into a sad but liberating symphony. I sighed and asked myself, what do I have left? A broken marriage, a career still in pieces, a cooking channel no one knows about? Sarah handed me a hot cup of tea and sat down next to me. "You still have you, Emily, and you still have these incredible hands," she said, gripping my hands tightly, her eyes searching mine. "Don't let anyone ever take that from you." Those words reached the deepest, most broken parts of me, pulling me out from the shattered shell I had been hiding in. The next morning, I got up early and walked around Pike Place Market. I took in the rows of glistening fresh salmon, bunches of kale, vibrant heirloom tomatoes, jars of local honey I had always dreamed of experimenting with in new recipes. From across the street, I spotted a small, faded sign, "Harbor Bite, since 1976. I stood there for a while. The smell of sizzling butter and garlic drifted out to the sidewalk, pulling me in like a siren song. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. A middle-aged woman with gray streaked hair stood behind the main kitchen counter. She turned around, her eyes bright behind thick glasses. "What can I do for you, sweetheart?" I swallowed hard, gripping my recipe journal inside my bag. I'm looking for a job. I can wash dishes, prep vegetables, anything. I just want to be in a kitchen. She looked me up and down, frowning slightly, then let out a small laugh. "This kitchen doesn't pay much, you know, but if you really love it, you can start today." My heart exploded with joy. On that first day, I did everything. Washed mountains of dishes, prepped veggies, scrubbed counters, helped run plates when it got busy. Sweat soaked my back, my hands turned raw and red, but I felt alive again. That night, back at Sarah's place, I cried. Not from pain, but because for the first time in years, I felt like I mattered. Every night, I stayed up testing new recipes on the small electric stove in the corner of the studio. I played around with honey mustard glaze for salmon, kale avocado salad with lemon tahini dressing, filming it all on my old phone. Sarah helped me edit the clips and upload them to a new TikTok account under an anonymous name, Emerald Bite. To my shock, within a few weeks, my first video had thousands of views. One clip showing my charred butter sauce for scallops unexpectedly went viral, shared by countless food accounts. I couldn't believe it. I kept replaying it, reading every single comment. I've never seen scallops plated so beautifully. Thank you for inspiring me to cook dinner for my mom tonight. Who's behind this account? A true chef. No one knew my face yet, but those words became the rope pulling me out of the abyss. One night at Harbor Bite, while cleaning up, I brought out my garlic cream crab soup creation for the staff to try. The head chef, the owner herself, tasted it, set her spoon down, and stared at me for a long moment. "Where did you learn this, kid?" I fidgeted, smiling shyly. "I taught myself since I was little. My grandma taught me to season with my heart." She looked at me, nodding slowly. "Tomorrow, you'll work next to me on the main line. We're putting this on the lunch menu. Who knows? The customers might love it." I almost screamed with happiness. I threw my arms around her. Her hands trembled slightly, but they were warm, just like my grandma's. That night, Sarah popped cheap champagne to celebrate. I sobbed into her arms. She just laughed, patting my back, her eyes shimmering like the midnight sea outside. "I told you, Emily, no one can put out your fire unless you let them." Deep inside me, something began to spark. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. I wanted to prove to the whole world, and more importantly to myself, that Emily wasn't a shadow, wasn't someone's possession, wasn't a failure. I was a chef. I was me. And my journey was only just beginning. It was a chilly March morning, Seattle wrapped in its usual damp fog. I was scrubbing down the kitchen at Harbor Bite when the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. I turned and saw a tall man with salt and pepper hair, wearing a long black coat, step inside. The head chef looked up, and her eyes lit up in shock, her voice trembling. "Oh my God, Gordon Avery?" I almost dropped the tray I was holding. Gordon Avery, my culinary idol, the Michelin 3-star chef, and lead judge of World Chef Showdown. He was standing here, at Harbor Bite. Gordon walked to the counter, scanned the faded paper menu, then glanced toward the prep table where I was working on my crab cream soup. "I heard there's a special garlic cream crab soup here. May I try it?" I froze. The head chef turned to me, her eyes a mix of excitement and panic. "Emily, bring it to him." My hands shook as I ladled the soup into a white porcelain bowl. The scent of fresh crab, roasted garlic, rich cream, and a hint of lemon zest floated up, wrapping around me like a memory. I took a deep breath, remembering my grandma's words, "Pour your heart into every spoonful." Gordon took the spoon, scooped a small taste. The kitchen fell silent. Every staff member held their breath, eyes glued to him. He closed his eyes, chewing slowly. The seconds stretched into what felt like eternity. Finally, he set the spoon down, opened his eyes, and looked directly at me. "You made this?" I swallowed hard and nodded. Yes, I did." He let out a quiet chuckle, then nodded, a look of genuine respect crossing his face. "Perfect. The cream doesn't overpower the crab, the garlic is subtle, and the lemon zest finish is beautifully refined. It captures the essence of the Pacific Northwest, a rare dish." The entire kitchen burst into cheers. My knees nearly gave out beneath me. Gordon locked eyes with me again, sharp but strangely warm. "Have you ever thought about competing on World Chef Showdown?" My mouth fell open. My heart felt like it was about to explode out of my chest. I stammered, I applied once, but..." Gordon frowned. "But what?" I dropped my gaze. that old wound tearing open again. My name, it was withdrawn by someone else. Gordon studied me for a moment, then placed his hand on my shoulder. There will always be people who try to drown your light, but no one can extinguish true talent. I'm working on a special season for hidden chefs, identities only revealed in the finals. I want you to join. I stared at him, stunned. My fingers dug into the edge of the counter, tears streaming down my face. "Do you have the courage?" Gordon asked, his voice firm but inviting. I lifted my head, met his unwavering gaze. In his eyes, I saw a reflection of myself, no longer blurred, no longer overshadowed. "Yes, I do." That very day, I started preparing. I asked for a few shifts off at Harbor Bite to focus on training. By day, I worked in the kitchen, learning new techniques. By night, I developed my own recipes, filmed them, and sent them to Gordon for feedback. Sarah stayed by my side, cheering me on, helping me edit every clip. I chose the name Emerald Bite for the show, matching my TikTok handle, a nod to Seattle's shimmering emerald waters that had embraced me when I lost everything. On the first day of filming, I walked into the studio. The cold blast from the air conditioning prickled my skin. I wore a pale apron, gripping my grandma's old paring knife like an anchor to something safe and true. Each round pushed me to my limits. The mystery ingredient challenge forced me to create a full dish using only scallops, dark chocolate, and wasabi. The royal cuisine round demanded a dish fit for world leaders. The global street food challenge had me reimagine street snacks from Tokyo, Paris, and Mexico City. I could barely breathe some nights, my apron drenched in sweat, but I poured every ounce of love and pain into each cut, every drop of sauce. Meanwhile, the TikTok account Emerald Bite exploded. Sarah posted behind-the-scenes clips that racked up millions of views. The hashtag #WhoIsEmeraldBite spread across Twitter and Instagram like wildfire. People speculated wildly about my identity. One night, scrolling through comments, I read, "Whoever you are, your food carries a soul. I can't wait to see you revealed." I smiled, tracing my finger across the screen, feeling something new and electric, faith. I kept pushing, inching closer to a dream I thought had died in that dim kitchen so long ago. I knew the road ahead would be tough, that Mark might still lurk somewhere, scheming. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I was no longer just a shadow. I was becoming the light I once believed I could never reach. I never imagined I'd find myself standing under such blinding lights. Each round felt like a life or death battle, fighting against the clock, against the old fears clawing at my chest. The semifinals took place in a massive hall in downtown Los Angeles. The audience packed every seat, cameras rolling nonstop, cheers crashing like waves. But the moment I stepped into that kitchen floor, it was just me, my knife, my pan, my spices. The challenge for the semifinals, City Spirit Fusion. I had to create a dish that captured the soul of Seattle, blending tradition and modernity. I closed my eyes and took a long breath. Memories flashed. Grandma's warm apple pie scent, the honey-grilled salmon on cold nights, Sarah's comforting smile as she handed me a cup of tea. I decided to make honey lemongrass ginger Dungeness salmon with a kale avocado lemon salad, the dish that had once made my video go viral. I wanted the judges, the audience, to not just taste my food, but to feel my story. I sliced ginger, lemongrass, brushed honey over the fish, my hands moving like a dance. Every movement whispered to me, "You're alive, Emily. You're no longer a prisoner." The audience held their breath as Gordon Avery stepped forward to taste. He cut a piece of salmon, inhaled deeply, then took a slow bite. His eyes met mine as if reading every scar carved into my heart. He set down his fork and knife, his voice deep and steady. perfect. This isn't just a dish. It's a love letter to Seattle and to yourself. The crowd erupted. I fell to my knees, hands covering my face, sobbing as cheers of "Emerald Bite" thundering through the hall. Meanwhile, Mark was sitting alone in his living room, eyes glued to the TV. He froze when Gordon mentioned the honey Dungeness salmon, the same dish I once made for his birthday, the one he had dismissed like trash. I later heard that he smashed his whiskey glass to the floor, roaring curses. His coworkers texted him, mocking him. "You let your wife become a global icon while you're stuck stewing in your own bitterness." The hashtag Who is Emerald Bite exploded. People edited my dish photos alongside night views of Seattle, calling me the Queen of the Emerald City. Headlines blared. Anonymous chef touches America's heart. The decade's best storytelling through food. Sarah rushed backstage, threw her arms around me. She was crying and I was laughing through tears, trembling but filled with joy. "You did it, Emily. You're finally living for yourself." But I knew it wasn't over. The final was still ahead. The moment of revealing my identity. And I wanted that moment to shine brighter than anything before. For 3 days leading up to the final, I barely slept. I kept refining the salmon, tweaking every detail. Every night, I scrolled through hundreds of thousands of supportive comments, watched fan reaction videos of people crying as they saw my dish. Then I got an anonymous email. "Emily, stop before it's too late. Don't disgrace the family. M." I just laughed. Mark still thought I'd cower like before, but this time I had nothing left to lose. Final day. The grand hall glowed under dazzling lights. A giant LED screen played a recap of my journey, the music pounding like my heart. The final challenge, defining dish. I had to create a plate that embodied my entire being, my story, my soul. I stood there, gripping my grandma's old paring knife. I decided on the Seattle Ocean Symphony. Fresh Dungeness salmon, caramelized scallops, lemon ginger butter sauce, topped with crispy shiso leaves, plated to look like ocean waves crashing against rocky shores. Every slice of fish, every drop of sauce felt like blood coursing onto that plate. I silently spoke to my grandma, to Sarah, to the scared little girl inside me. We did it. When I placed my dish in front of the judges, the room fell silent. Gordon picked up his fork, smiled faintly before taking the first bite. He looked up at me, his eyes glistening. I didn't just taste a dish. I heard the story of a soul. The hall erupted in thunderous applause, waves of cheers rolling over me. I stood there, took a deep breath, and let the tears fall freely. I was ready for that final moment. I was ready to be seen and to win. The drums thundered through the arena. Stage lights swept across the crowd, lighting up tear-streaked faces and eyes shimmering with hope. I stood behind the curtain, gripping my grandma's old paring knife, the cold blade a sharp reminder of every sleepless night spent crying in the rain, every insult Mark spat at me, every time my hands trembled hitting upload on that very first video. Then the MC's voice boomed, strong and electric. "And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. Emerald Bite, step onto the stage and show the world who you really are." I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. I saw my grandma smiling, Sarah's hand wrapped around mine, and that scared girl I used to be shaking in the dark. I opened my eyes and stepped forward. The entire arena fell silent. I removed my emerald green mask. My brown hair fell over my shoulders, my face illuminated under the bright lights. Hi, I'm Emily Davis, and this is my story. The explosion of applause shook the hall. People rose to their feet, hugging each other, crying, screaming with joy. I heard the MC shout into the mic, "She is Emerald Bite, the woman who turned pain into dishes that moved millions of hearts." I took the mic, my voice trembling, but every word ringing clear and fierce. I used to think I was only good enough to stand behind a kitchen wall, serving a man who never believed I was worthy. But today, I stand here not to get revenge on him, but to thank myself, to thank my grandma, to thank Sarah, and to thank every single person who ever believed I wasn't just a shadow. I paused, looking straight into the camera, imagining Mark's eyes glued to the screen at home. I don't cook for praise. I cook because it's how I tell my story, and I believe each of us has a story worth hearing, no matter how many people try to bury it. Gordon stepped forward, holding the brilliant gold trophy, his eyes glistening. He raised it high before placing it into my hands. "I'm proud to call you the champion of World Chef Showdown." I clutched the trophy to my chest, bowing my head as tears streamed down my face. Confetti cannons roared, victory music blared. I lifted the trophy above my head, shouting as loud as I could, "Seattle, this is for my grandma, for every woman who was ever told she wasn't good enough." At that exact moment, in Mark's fancy apartment, he smashed every bottle of liquor, screaming in rage. The media and social networks exploded. Tyrant husband exposed. Emily Davis from victim to global icon. Mark's old friends and colleagues piled on, mocking him. Business partners severed ties, calling him ethically worthless. In one night, Mark lost his reputation, his friends, his job, everything. Meanwhile, I landed on the cover of Time, signed deals to open my own restaurant chain, got invited to appear on TV shows, and became the face of the Own Your Flame empowerment campaign. When I returned to Seattle, thousands lined up to welcome me at Pike Place Market. Sarah ran toward me, sobbing. I pulled her in tight, breathing in the salty sea air, the smell of apple pie wafting from a nearby bakery, the scent of freedom. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen of my soon-to-open flagship restaurant. I took out my grandma's old paring knife, gently wiping its shiny blade, smiling to myself. We've come a long way, haven't we? My phone buzzed, an email inviting me to give a TED Talk, turning pain into art. I laughed, and fresh tears spilled down. I closed my eyes, feeling each heartbeat echo through me. No more fear, no more darkness. Just me, the kitchen lights, and the sound of spoons tapping plates like a victory symphony. I had won, not just against Mark, but against that monster inside me that used to whisper, "You're not enough." That night, I slept deeply, hugging the trophy close to my chest. Tomorrow would be a new chapter. But tonight, I let myself fully savor this victory.